You may be seated for the sermon. I don't know what it was about this week, but several people have spoken to me and have emailed me and basically said, Mark, I'm struggling. There's all the teachings I've received in church, and yet I see a lot of people and a lot of leaders who are supposedly teaching and following about Christ, doing things that aren't so good. And it's interesting that we have some of the passages that we have today, where you have Elijah and Elisha asking for a double portion. And it turns out that actually our inheritance in Christ is this incredible fruit of the Spirit of love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And in contrast, thinking about over many, many decades within the Catholic Church, we had not only tremendous abuse of the most vulnerable people within those groups, but then people in power covering that up. And then almost not surprisingly, but still shocking, you had just the report that came out for the Southern Baptist Convention, where having observed the Catholic Church response to that, you have leaders of the Baptist Church make the same decision that we are going to cover up, and in some cases even punish or get victims to believe that no, these things actually didn't happen to you, and this could also be your fault, that if anything did happen to you. Really horrific stuff as we have the continuing revelation of January 6th. I have to admit, I've not seen anything new since I was actually watching the news on January 6th and saw everything that happened and saw what everybody said and did. But it's quite interesting that in surveys, people who have espoused the strongest religious beliefs also have the strongest tolerance for violent political action. So what is all of this? Just because we have this inheritance doesn't mean that this is how we're going to use our inheritance. Just want to tell you the story of John Elway's. When he was 4 years old, his father died, and he and his mother, so this is in the early 1700s, inherited 100,000 pounds. So think about in the early 1700s, how much 100,000 pounds would be worth. And that was the actual liquid assets. They also had land and many homes that were also inherited. John's maternal grandmother was famous throughout England for being a miser. And so the daughter took after her mother. And so John's mother died of starvation with 100,000 pounds because she deprived herself so much. His uncle was attempting to live off of 110 pounds per year. And John, up into his teenage years, into his early 20s, seemed fairly normal, but then he really wanted to get close to his uncle, and so he began to imitate his uncle. He became known that, he didn't want to spend money on food or other things, so he would look for food that other people had abandoned. It's been reported that he ate some meat that was actually physically moving on his plate. It was so full of worms and other things. He is reported to have taken, and again, 1700s, there were a lot of poor people. So he would take clothing that the poor had discarded, so clothing with holes and other things, and wear that. He would wear the same clothes for days on end, so he wouldn't have to wash them. He would go to bed exactly at sunset, so he wouldn't have to buy candles or anything else. And his one of the most famous legends is that one day he saw a rat pulling a dead bird out of the river. So he took the dead bird from the rat and ate it. And so he inherited from his uncle 250,000 pounds to add to his own wealth. And so at the time of his death, he was worth roughly 500,000 pounds, which would be equivalent to about $130 million today, and yet live this life of great deprivation. So just this morning, I want to encourage us. We are extremely wealthy people. We have been given a double portion. The Spirit that was with and in Christ, He has given us. And so we have a spirit of love, of joy, of peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. This is our inheritance. How we choose to spend it, there will be other people, and I don't want to be too cynical, but I think any leader, any organization, any institution, over time will probably do something that will disappoint us. For the Southern Baptists, one of the superstars within the Southern Baptist Convention was the president of Southwest Seminary, and a man by the name of Paige Patterson. And it was reported, a student reported that she had been assaulted by another student on campus. So to a group of leaders, he said, let me get her alone. I'll guarantee you I can break her down. And so, okay, we have a leader. Okay, Paige, you want to have meat full of maggots? And that's how you want to use your inheritance? That's all right. That is clearly not from Christ. But what Christ has given us is this incredible fruit of the Spirit. So for one another, when we see each other stepping out and not living in our inheritance, we can call each other back and encourage each other, remind each other these good things that we've been given. But the invitation this morning is, yes, other people will be doing other things and not using their inheritance wisely. They will live like John Elway's, of having just this incredible abundance, but not being able to see it or use it in a way that is helpful for themselves. So just another reminder this morning, here we are. We've been given this huge outpouring of love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Let's go ahead and, for ourselves and as this community, let's live in and enjoy the inheritance that we've been given. Amen.